Alrighty, once again, it is an absolutely beautiful day here in Sydney. So outside I am. It's time to sit outside here, probably get bitten by a few mosquitoes. But one thing I want to talk about today is a really good summary of what I consider operational learning is. If you have no idea what it is, this will be the video that you can watch to go, yep, now I get it. I don't know how long it's going to go for, but I'm going to go through the 4 items that I've got for today with a fair bit of detail, but reasonably quickly. Okay, so operational learning, what I consider HOP, learning teams, the 4 Ds, and having sticky conversations. Okay, so they're the 4 things I'm going to go through today. Let's start with HOP, human and organisational potential. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly move over here, give myself some room to put some stuff up over there on the trees. From what I understand, the HOP principles were developed by a guy named Todd Conklin and a bunch of his mates. They were working at Los Alamos Nuclear Propulsion and Nuclear Power Lab down there in New Mexico. And in the sort of the 90s is, from what I understand, is when they come up with this sort of stuff. It's been around for more than 20 years, and the HOP principles was what they originally developed. Let's talk about them. Error is normal. Blame fixes nothing. Systems or context drives behaviour. Learning and improving is vital. And the 5th one is a leader's response to failure matters. So let's quickly go through them. Starting with number 1, error is normal. Yes, we have pretty much figured out by now, it's 2025, that it doesn't matter what human error management or threat error management programs you put in place, humans are going to continue to make mistakes. I will caveat that with, yes, you can do some threat and error management to figure out personally what your conditions are that lead to you making an error. And that might be the fact that you're tired, or it might be the fact that if you have a few drinks the night before, you may, like even if you're under the limit when you get to work, you may be more like potentially, like your potential to make errors may be higher. It might be if you're stressed out. It might be when you've been given a task and you're under time pressure and you need to get it done right now, then your rate of error goes up. That's what happens to me. If I'm under pressure, I normally snowball into a series of errors. Okay, so yes, threat and error management works, but the premise is that humans will continue to make errors. And you need to expect that, and you need to build a system that can cope with a human making an error. Okay, now there are plenty of ways to get around it. So long as we understand that error is normal, we're getting somewhere. The next one, blame fixes nothing, rolls along the same lines, doesn't it? Blame and punishment is one of the worst things that we can do to our people if we want to get the best out of them. Sure, there may be a time that blame and punishment may work. If they've violated, it might be necessary. Who knows, right? But if you want to, what we're talking about here is 21st century safety thinking. We want to treat our people better than what we were treating them before. I'm not saying you were treating them poorly, but if we're treating our people at a certain standard, at a certain level, they are going to do way better work, turn up to work in a much happier state. They're going to go home in a much happier state. And really, essentially, that's what we want, isn't it? Okay. So blame fixes nothing. I like this one that Todd Conklin uses. You can blame and punish people, or you can learn and improve. So if you start blaming and punishing, the learning and improving goes down. So if you start blaming people, you're not learning. If you start punishing people, you're not improving. Okay. So obviously you want to shift those scales to be learn and improve, and take the blame and the punishment away. That's the critical part about it, because we're going into a higher level of 21st century safety thinking where we're really looking after our people and understanding that if we're blaming people for anything that they've done wrong, because we know that human error is normal, you're going to do a bunch of things, all right? If they get in trouble for it, they're going to be like, I'm not going to tell them anything that I've done wrong ever again. They're going to start hiding things. They're going to stop reporting. And you're going to start a culture, a bit of a society within your workplace, where the management doesn't find out anything anymore because they're too busy blaming people. If you've got a learning mindset and something's gone wrong, and the mindset is, I'd like to learn from these people, then that's a way better mindset to have, isn't it? Because everyone knows that and a lot of people say that they've got a just culture. That's 100% true, but some people let that slide from time to time, and it shows, right? I even see some organisations myself that still have that old blame, the BBS, the behavioural based safety system, right? Where there is fear when something goes wrong, because they're worried that they're going to get in trouble for it, right? And that's pretty common still today. It's an old industrial age mindset that has hung on, and still in 2025 we're still seeing pockets of it. So like I said, 21st century safety thinking, let's get rid of that and move into error is normal, and blame fixes nothing, because it literally doesn't fix anything. The next one is systems drive behavior or context drive behavior. So the system that you work in is what drives behavior. Now, I know for sure, I can tell you a bunch of stories on this one, right? But I know for sure, back probably 10 years ago, when our computer systems within Air Force were really, the capacity for them was getting really, really good. We were getting some really, really good stuff, but the capacity wasn't there yet, right? When something went wrong, that system was down for a day, 2 days, 3 days sometimes, right? So we've removed all the paper-based systems, and you might have a CAM2, which is a maintenance management system. It's all on the computer these days. Or you might have Objective, which is a file storing system. So you used to have paper files and that sort of stuff, and obviously we've binned all that, literally, and put it all onto a computer-based filing system, which everyone uses, and everything that you really need, all your spreadsheets, all your battle rhythm stuff that you work on is all in there. And then some days you come to work and you log on and Objective doesn't work. So you're like, the system drives behavior. And you're like, this is such a crap system. I hate this place. This is so bad. And you'd have people raging and roaring, wouldn't you? All right, pretty common. That's extremely normal. But that system drove our behavior. These days, the behavior fixed it, fixed it enough to a point. We complained enough to a point that now, for example, and I can't tell you the numbers on this, but for Objective, that file service system, there might have only been one server back then, maybe. I don't know what it was. But when it would fail, it was down, it was dead until someone, a technician or a boffin came in along and fixed it. These days, there's a bunch of servers, all with the same information. If a server goes down, sometimes it happens automatically. Sometimes you might have to manually change the server. Bam, you've got that file storage system back again. You're back in business. Systems drive behavior. All right, that system works well. It's the same with a car. If you've got an old piece of crap car and you're worried that it's not going to start, the starter motor is dying, it's got a flat battery, or just all these things that go wrong with old school cars. That if you've got an old school car, that's going to drive your behaviour. Sometimes, I had a friend, she had an old EH Holden, and the clutch cable would fall off. So she's driving along, and all of a sudden she'd put a clutch in, it would go to the floor, and she wouldn't be able to change gears. And you'd see, I remember seeing her a couple of times, she'd pull over and be yelling and raging and banging the car roof and open up the bonnet and get down in there with a screwdriver or whatever she had to do, and put a clutch cable back together. It was pretty easy to fix. But that drove her behaviour massively, because she raged. Wow, and it was fun to see. It was really, really cool. But these days you get a car and nothing goes wrong with it. It's a beautiful system, all right? It's comfortable. The air conditioning works. You push the button, it starts every time. The system of your car these days drives your behaviour, okay? And you can fit any system into that, and it works perfectly, okay? Think of a mechanic's workshop. Think of the worst mechanic you've ever seen compared to what, the good mechanic workshops are today, all right? You may see that worst mechanic and you're like, there's no way I'm taking my car to that guy, all right? But these days you take your car to a mechanic and you don't even see the mechanics. You just see a person dressed neatly with a shirt and tie on. They're really friendly. Their customer service is their main game. They wouldn't have a clue how to fix a car, because they don't want mechanics talking to people. They want customer service reps talking to people. So, and then, you hand them your keys, they give the keys to the mechanic, and the mechanic sorts out your car, doesn't he? Right? Systems drive behavior. You want to go to that mechanic where your customer service is great. You can watch some TV, you can make a cup of coffee, that sort of stuff. Systems drive behavior. Sometimes that system comes at a cost. Sometimes it's more expensive, but it depends what you want out of life. It depends what you want out of your safety system. Sometimes it's worth spending those extra dollars so that the system that you work in, it drives the behavior of your workers, your customers, everyone that you deal with, so that you're driving their behavior, okay? Some people call the systems drive behavior context drives behavior, and it's just exactly the same thing, isn't it? Okay, I like the systems thinking side of things, so I just go with that word. Same, but different, all right? The next one is learning and improving is vital. This is HOP principle number 4, people. It's a good one. Like I said at the beginning, this one lines up with the blame and punishment, doesn't it? Because I said you can blame and punish, or you can learn and improve. We want to learn and improve, so learning and improving is vital. It's the opposite of blame and punishment. How you learn is extremely important. When something goes wrong, the way you learn is important. The way you react to that is important. So, the way you learn is vital, and when you learn is vital. Sometimes you wait until an accident to occur before you learn, and sometimes you have to, right? It's like, crap, that control failed, or we don't have a control in place for that particular situation, or that control is brittle, and now we have to learn why that system failed and an accident occurred and someone was injured or equipment was broken or whatever that may be. I'll talk about learning teams in a sec, but you can learn pre-accident or you can learn after the accident when through an investigation process. Either way, learning and improving is vital. Simple. The last HOP principle is principle number 5, which is a leader's response to failure matters. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Who's ever had a leader, a person in a leadership position? Doesn't have to be the top leader. In the Air Force, it could be just a corporal or a sergeant or an officer. It doesn't matter. But something's gone wrong and somebody's rolled in and raged. Who's had that? I have. Yeah, many times. Or sometimes a mistake happens and the leader does absolutely nothing. They just pretend it didn't happen. I've also seen that. Sometimes you may have something happen and the person in a leadership position rolls in and shows strong leadership and says, all right, let's sort out the situation. If there's first aid required or there's been an injury, let's sort that out first with the calm, empathetic sort of tone. Then once that's taken care of and people have been triaged and they're being taken to have their injuries taken care of and work needs to get back to normal, the leader's response matters then as well. If you bring your team in and say, hey team, let's learn from this. What did you see? How can we get back to normal operations as safely and as quickly as possible? That's a simple question. Then you actually have a lot of people, I've seen that, where people have gone, whoa, really? That's actually a pretty cool response. Yeah, all right, here we go, boss. Let's talk about this and this and this and this and this. You said you were going to fix the guard on that machine and, it's been broken for 6 months, but we still have to use it. Or you said we were going to fix this procedure and the procedure hasn't been updated in the publications yet and we're still using the old procedure. Cool, now we're learning. Let's find out, let's chase up where those fixes are at and we'll fix them. Sweet. Great response to failure, isn't it? Right. Yeah, like I said, if you have a really bad, the person who just can't handle it and comes out with a rage and makes people feel like shit, and people go home at the end of the day going, geez, I wish that didn't happen and now I feel really terrible and I don't think I'm going to come into work again, and they get on Seek and they start looking for a new job, that's not ideal. Right? The leader's response to failure sets up a system in your workplace where the behavior matters. I've seen, as an aircrew in the back of a Hercules flying around, I've seen left and right polar opposites of this, where an emergency has happened, a real-time emergency. It might have been an engine failure or a hydraulic leak or something. I've seen them handled really well, and I've seen them handled not so great. And unfortunately, the ones you remember are the ones that aren't handled really well. You remember them very, very well because they're the ones that get talked about because their response mattered. Some people can make really good decisions under pressure. Some people don't, okay? It comes down to emotional intelligence. It comes down to empathy. It comes down to forbearance, like, and being kind, really. You don't have to be an asshole when something goes wrong. You can be nice about it, and your team will remember the nice people, okay? So they're the 5 HOP principles. Now, I recommend, I know especially within defence in my current job, we've got to remember the defence values and all this sort of stuff, which is super, super important. I feel the HOP principles are really critical, that everyone in the organisation should have a pretty decent understanding of them, okay? They're simple, very, very simple principles, and you get to know them by just talking the language. And when something goes wrong, you can say, hey, don't forget that leader's response to failure matters, or hey, don't forget the system that we're working under here drives behaviour, or don't forget that error is normal. Right? And then people start talking that language. It works a treat. I've seen it, and it's brilliant when the HOP principles are number 1 priority of people, and that mindset rolls through an organisation. It's really, really cool. So highly recommended. The next tool that I have as such, learning teams. So a learning team is just as it sounds. You get a bunch of people, you put them in a room, you stand around the back of your ute at a toolbox talk. You can just do it anywhere, all right? I find the magic number, having done only a few, and literally only a few, magic number is like about 7 people. Let's just go with 7, plus or minus, plus 1, minus 2. That's about it. You get too many people, you get people don't talk up, or there's people that talk too much. And if you get too few people, there's not enough value, or maybe not enough experience. Depends who you have, depends on their level of experience, okay? But 7 plus 1 minus 2 is the number I'm going to go with for you, okay? Get them in a room and talk about work as done, all right? You got the black line, blue line. Black line, work as imagined, how you feel the job is going to go, or how you think the job is going to go, right? And then work as done, which is the blue line, which is that way more complicated. It brings all the conditions, it brings all the human factors into it, and is obviously very different to work as imagined, which is a black straight line, okay? You're talking about work as done. And if you have a problem task, there's a task that you do all the time, and that seems to be the highest error rate or threat rate or hazard rate. Let's talk about that particular task, right? And get some SMEs, get some people in the room that know about that task, and just talk about it, right? And like, really long story short, because there's a bunch of books on this topic, which I'll tell you about in a sec. But really long story short is, you have the first session, you just talk about the problems. You only raise the issues, and you do not let the teams get into too much. Don't go down a rabbit hole, all right? Don't go letting them complain for too long. Say, hey, look, in 25 words or less, what are your problems, right? And they bang, 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 all right? Here's the issues, right? And they're normally sort of those organisational issues, aren't they, right? Where with the way your organisation runs, okay? Put them on a whiteboard, a bit of butcher's paper, write them down somewhere so that they're completely visible to the team, right? Then go away, okay? Have a bit of soak time. You might have a 15-minute break, you might have a lunch break, you might come back the next day, depending on what your situation is. But you need soak time to allow people to have a think about it, go outside, have a bit of a talk about it, potentially with each other. And then when you come back, first thing you ask is, are there any more problems that we have identified in the soak time, which you can write down? But then you're going to start looking at some solutions. And once again, you don't want it to turn into a rant. You don't want to let people go off on a whinge, because having been in the Air Force for 30 years, yeah, we can have a whinge. It's a bit ridiculous. We really, really can. And when you start having a whinge, you just lose track of the real problems, okay? So you've got the problems written on the whiteboard. Now let's start looking at some real solutions without the waffle, okay? So if you had 10 more people or $10 million or a gold-plated spanner, whatever it was, how would you fix this problem? And I did this, a good story I've got, I did it with 23 Squadron up in Amberley. So the fuel guys, there was a few issues with the fuel supply system, right? So a civic truck would deliver the fuel to RAF Base Amberley, it would go into the storage tanks, and then everything else just seemed to be a problem. It was all run by the RAFies. The fuel quality checks, there was a few issues with that. There was problems with the storage, there was problems with putting it in the truck, there was problems with taking it to the aircraft, and there was some problems at the aircraft putting it into planes. And there was a lot of safety reports coming out of it, and I'm like, all right, we've got to figure this out. Learning team, bam, got a bunch of people together, and I just let them talk, and we filled up a bunch of whiteboards, a bunch of bits of butcher's paper, right? Had a break, come back, went through what they would do if they had, unlimited time, money, etc., whatever, and then made it realistic. Then I took a photo of all that stuff, took it to the CO, and said, hey, sir, let's have a chat about the fuel system. Here's some of the issues. And he went, wow, that's actually really good data. There's a heap of good information there. And the guys that did the learning team were like, wow, that was actually really awesome, because I'm used to getting reamed out in an accident investigation. And today I felt that I wasn't reamed out. I wasn't under pressure. There was no blame and punishment. We didn't care about any errors that were made. We were just talking about the problems at work. And it worked, right? They loved it. You walk out of an accident investigation interview and you're like, I feel a bit dirty. I really wish I wasn't involved in that accident. You walk out of a learning team and you're like, I feel like I've just contributed to my team, to my workplace, and I feel pretty good about it. That's the difference between a learning team and an accident investigation. It's a proactive measure that you can do any day of the week, that you don't have to wait for an accident to occur to do, okay? I'm doing a learning team next week, actually, with air traffic control in the Air Force. So a bit nervous about it, but that's okay. So the 44 wing people and from SRG, they've identified that they've got some issues, and we're going to try to do a learning team to identify what the real issues are, so we can hopefully get some traction to fix them. All right, you can do it for anything, and it's really cool. What I was going to talk about was the Brents. So Brent Sutton and Brent Robinson, along with a couple of other people. Josh Bryant's thrown a couple of chapters in there. Well, so they've got a bunch of books out called Learning Teams. Well, the company that they have is Learning Teams Inc., and you can go to their website, Learning Teams Inc., Incorporated, but it's just Learning Teams Inc. And they've got a bunch of books that they're bringing out. I think it's a series of 10. From what I can remember, it's on my bookcase at work. I think they're up to number 4. But those Learning Teams books are a how-to guide on how to do them. They're really thin. They're only 100 so pages each. They're a really easy read. They're really cool. The other way you can do it is listen to their podcast, which has just changed its name to The Practice of Learning Teams, I believe. Yep. But Brent Sutton, Brent Robinson are the names. They've got all the guides on learning teams. Okay, so that's learning teams. The 4Ds, same guys plus a bunch of other people came up with the 4Ds and have not came up with them, but have pretty much operationalized them to a point where they're really effective now, and they've got a bunch of data on it. All right, their podcast also covers the 4Ds, but dumb, different, dangerous, and difficult. Okay, they effectively, from history, we think they started in the U.S. Air Force. A pilot graduated pilot's course in the USAF, or the US military, and generally the conversation went when the commander got up on stage and handed the wings and did that speech. It was don't go out and do anything dumb, dangerous, or different. Okay, you've just been taught how to fly by the training school. Don't do anything dumb, don't do anything dangerous, and don't do anything different to what we've taught you, or that is different to what is in your NATOPS, your manuals, that sort of thing. Okay. From what we understand, that's how they started. We've gone and added difficult on there as well. Okay, and so dumb. Is there something that you're doing that just doesn't make sense? Like this procedure is so dumb. Why are we being asked to do this? Like, I feel this is making us dumber. That's a 4D. Okay. Different. We're used to doing this task. I've done this task a bunch of times, but for some reason this time, this task seems different. Why are we being asked to do it different? Why are we doing different to the procedure? What is different about it today that may be a problem? There might be different conditions that have rolled in that have made the task different. That's a 4D, and it might be worth talking about. Dangerous, makes sense. If a task carries a particular hazard or more hazard than you're used to, that's a 4D. Okay, with a caveat there, we're not making ice cream here, people. Okay, we're in the military, we're doing some pretty funky stuff that's high hazard, high risk, and it definitely carries danger. Sometimes we're throwing stuff out the back of planes. Sometimes we're flying along at 700 knots, bloody 500 feet off the ground. There's P8s out there flying over water at 150 feet, looking for boats. It's dangerous. There's some stuff that we do is dangerous, right? But we're in the military, we have to do that safely, okay? So I'm not saying get out there and stop doing those dangerous things, but if something seems more dangerous or there's a new hazard that's been introduced that you're not aware of, that's a 4D. And the last one is difficult. Why is this task so difficult today? It might be you've done it before and it's pretty straightforward, but today for some reason it's difficult. Or why are they making us do this crap that is just so hard? There's got to be a better way to do this. That's a 4D. All right, nice and easy. Okay. Just a few easy examples or simple examples, but how do you use them? How do you operationalize the 4Ds? So the Brents have come up with a system where, in the construction site that they work at, everyone's got a QR code on the side of their hat, right? And if they see a 4D, someone grabs the phone, goes up to their mate, scans the QR code on the side of their hat, it takes them to a Google form. They fill out the Google form, it takes a few seconds. I come across something that was particularly difficult, they write it down, boop, email it to whoever it goes email to. The plan then is that the safety team, the person who receives it, whatever, gets in contact with them and says, right, what's your 4D? Let's talk about it. Okay. So now instead of waiting for things to happen, you've got a very simple way to communicate something that's dumb, different, dangerous, and difficult right now. Okay. Unfortunately, the challenge we may have in military, you may not always have your phone on you. Come up with any system that you want to that works. I don't care how you do it, so long as you can quickly communicate a 4D up the chain to the safety person. That's cool. That's all you need to do. Okay. In fact, I think we probably should start tracking 4Ds on Sentinel. It might be a simple software change. I don't know how to do it yet, but yeah, let's track 4Ds on Sentinel instead of tracking all of the accidents that we have. Let's track work as done, work that is good, and track the 4Ds. That's a potential win we could have there. Okay. The books that the Brents brought out also goes into the 4Ds in a great detail, and as well as their podcast. So it's super effective. All right. So the fourth tool is Sticky, STKY. Shit that's going to kill you. Sorry. Let me rephrase that exactly as it should sound. Shit that kills you. Okay. Sticky was made by a guy in the US called Matt Compher. He's trademarked it, so I'm very aware of that, and very willing to mention his name every time I talk about having sticky conversations. So he works for a company called Quanta Services, which, from what I understand, is America countrywide. In fact, they may even be up in Canada as well. That basically energy distribution, so power lines, power grids, everything to do with probably telephones, power distribution, that sort of thing. So a massive company. I think they employ 150,000 people. And when you think, oh man, we're in defence and introducing this stuff's going to be way too hard, I think there's 50,000 military, like uniformed personnel, and probably that again in civvy personnel. I think we can do it. If he can share it among 150,000 workforce fairly quickly and rapidly, I think we can do it as well. So there's nothing stopping you. Anyways, so sticky conversations, shit that kills you. Matt Compher's come up with the energy wheel, which I'll put over here. and it's got things. Just I'm going off memory here, but it's got chemical, motion, electrical energy, biological, radiation, those sort of things. They're effectively the hazards that you come across on a daily basis, right? And they are the things that are going to kill you. Okay. So let's become aware of them. Okay. When you think about what the controls are in your workplace, I guarantee you the average worker doesn't fully understand them and probably doesn't really need to up to now. Okay. Someone up high with a lot of knowledge and expertise has done a detailed risk assessment, a deliberate risk assessment, and come up with all of the controls that they feel should be in place for the particular tasks that you do. And those, any of those controls should then be put into policy, into your OIPs, into your TTPs, whatever you want to call your Ps, should be put into policy so that when the average worker, brand new, first day on the job, goes out on the job, picks up the book, follows the procedure step by step, should be doing that job safely, all right? That's how the system should work, and hopefully does, and should continue to work like that. But what you're doing with the sticky conversations is you're allowing that average worker to understand the controls that are in place, so that, because controls are good on the very, very first day that they're introduced. Sometimes a control might be a safety harness, or a barrier, or a rule or a procedure. And those controls may become brittle over time. They may start to degrade or break, or people are taking shortcuts. Whatever those controls are, if we're not aware of them, we don't know when they're going to break or when they're starting to fade away. So sticky conversation keeps that risk conversation alive at all levels. So now, when you're going out to do a job, you're going out to do a tire change on a plane. So we're going to jack up a plane, we're going to undo a wheel, we're going to take the wheel off, and we're going to get a new wheel, we're going to put it back on. All right? What's the shit that can kill you doing that job? Okay, so me just thinking about it now, and I haven't done a wheel change in many, many years, but we're going to take a jack out, and we're going to lift the plane up. So there's gravity, because the plane could fall and hurt someone. There's mechanical energy in the jack in the plane, that kind of thing. That can kill you. There's mechanical energy when you take the wheel off. There's pressure. There's hydraulic pressure, potentially. There's pressure from mechanical items. There's time pressure, which is a potentially different way of looking at it. You're doing a before flight, and the crew is waiting in flight line, but you just realise you've got a split in the tyre, you've got to change a wheel, and there's time pressure. That can kill you, okay? There might be chemicals, or the noise out there. The noise that's out there isn't going to kill you now, and it's probably never going to kill you, but it's something that will freaking mess up your life one day. So being aware of it is really cool, is really critical. So what are the controls that we have in place? All right, when we go out to jack up an aircraft, we're going to check the jack to make sure the jack is in date and it's serviceable and that it works and it's not leaking. Bam, there's a control. When we put the jack in place, there's a particular place that we put the jack, and we jack the aircraft up, and we might put a little barrier around the plane, and we might put a sign in the doorway to make sure no one actually walks on the plane so the plane doesn't fall off the jacks. There's a couple of controls right there for you, okay? And now what you're doing is you're talking about these things with the average worker, keeping the risk conversation alive, understanding the controls. Bam, sticky conversations are working for you, okay? That's the intent behind sticky conversations. So, we're deep into it now. I've talked about HOP, human and organisational performance, plus, one more thing, I like to call it human and organisational potential. Performance is a good thing, and we want to perform. But are we always trying to perform at the highest level? Performing at the lowest level? Where are we performing? Let's talk about just potential. It's just a name. I like human and organisational potential, and guess what? It still spells HOP, which I'm pretty happy about. We talked about learning teams. We talked about the 4Ds. We talked about sticky. You're like, yeah, okay. I like one of those or two of those, or I like all of them. I don't mind which ones you like, okay? But now I'm like, okay, do you feel like your organisation needs these tools? Okay, hopefully, I'm going to say yes. I really hope your organisation does need these and wants to take them on board. It's actually pretty easy. Okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to introduce them all at once and go, hey guys, okay, here's HOP learning teams 4Ds and stickies. Bam, we're going to do it. We're going to introduce all this stuff. Do you think that's going to go down really well? Because I don't either. Small changes, just one at a time. Brent Roberts and Brent Sutton call it the Trojan mouse effect. Okay, just get that Trojan mouse. He's got his battle armor on and he's ready for a fight, but he's only a mouse and he's only just going to do one or two little things at once. Okay, that's it. Just do small changes. You might introduce HOP and discuss that within your workplace and say, hey, here's the HOP principles. Let's start talking about them and use them as sort of daily language. You might introduce the 4Ds, or you might do a couple of learning teams, or you might introduce STKY Conversations. Whatever it is that you do, or you might find something else that works. All right, I'm focusing on these 4, but there's so much else out there. Okay, these 4 are what I consider for now to be simple things that you can implement right now, make happen, right, and get the thing started. Okay, what you're doing with this system now is engaging your people. You're empowering your workforce. You're sending your people home at the end of the day feeling that they've been able to contribute to their workflow at work. We actually think it sounds pretty cool. You listen to your team, you empower them, you let them come up with ideas, and the critical part is when they come up with ideas, I've got to go inside soon, there's bloody mosquitoes. When they come up with the ideas, here's the critical part. Management team has got to listen to them. That's critical. Because of the way they're treating their people. 21st century safety thinking people, that is where we need to get to next. Look after your people. Okay. That's the critical part about it. Yeah, the bit about the leaders. So we're used to, in current Air Force safety system, an accident happens, we report it in Sentinel, we investigate it, we make people feel really bad, and then out of that investigation comes action and recommendation items, right? These are the action items, this is what we feel needs to be changed, and recommendation items, for recommending for other units to potentially look at, okay? There's nothing stopping you when you're doing a learning team or having one of these conversations to say, hey, we should introduce this as an action item, okay? You don't have to wait for an accident to come up with an action or recommendation item, okay? Have a learning team, put it on Sentinel, and say however you want to put it, right? So you can track it properly with the right, through the right levels with the safety team, and say, here's some action items that we got out of a learning team. Nothing's happened, but we've identified this issue with this procedural task that we do. A couple of action items out of that, bang, you're tracking it, all right? We're using the same system that we're already using. You're just using a different mindset. You're looking after your team. Your team's going happy days, okay? I think that'll do for tonight. The mozzies, I've been bitten like 18 times now. I just feel this is I like getting outside. The backdrop's not great, it's my fence, but hopefully you've been able to listen to the lorikeets and the crickets and the frogs and the planes going overhead. But ladies and gents, thank you for listening if you've gotten this far. Subscribe so you get more out of me if required. If you have any questions on how to do a 4Ds, how do I start a learning team, get in touch with me. I'm on Defence on Skype, or just comment on this YouTube and get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to help you out through that as well. You don't have to be in defence if you're a civvy and you want to have the same conversations. More than happy. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been emotional. See ya.